Good morning, and oh my gosh, I sound nasally. Welcome to Little Life, Big Loss. I think today we are recording episode 12, and I have little Miley on my lap today. He's just being the best little cuddler. We have a beautiful mama Alyson joining us today. We've already had tears. We haven't even pressed record yet. I always say to everyone, I'm going to press record straight away because otherwise conversations we have are just so good, and I just always want to record them. So it's going to be another tearjerker. Obviously, I don't know a lot about Alyson's story. I get a little snippet in the form that they fill in, but I try not to actually even read it much because I'm like, I just want to be so in the story, and I want to go on that ride with you because I know when people share their story, it takes them right back to that day and that moment and all of the parts. So my first question is always the same. Who were you? Oh, firstly, I want to say thank you for coming on. I know it's a
Oh,
super vulnerable space, and it's I don't ever take for granted the opportunity and the trust that you have in me to open up. So thank you.
thank you for having me.
Um, who were you before the day you lost your baby?
I was a mum. I also have a 12-year-old son, a wife. Um, we also, prior to Lincoln, had 4 early miscarriages. So I have been a mum for a while prior to Lincoln. Um, but yeah, pretty much mum life before,
Yeah,
anyway, before we lost Lincoln. Yep.
yeah. And what year Lincoln was recently?
Last February. So he was born on the 22nd of February 2022. So all twos.
Oh, so
Yeah,
special. I'm a big
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
a big numbers girl. I love that.
Same. And my older son, Lachlan, was born on the 22nd of a different month. So 22 is a special number
Oh,
for
I
our
do.
family.
I
Yeah.
love 22. It's one of my favorite numbers.
Oh, yeah, same.
And so you had four miscarriages before you had so
Lincoln,
yeah.
we had my son, Lachlan,
Yeah.
and with his delivery, I had some problems. I hemorrhaged and like my uterus is a bit messed up from that delivery. So they had said it would be hard to fall. Um, and
Wow.
then the 4 miscarriages were, I never made it past 8 weeks. Um, so then when we fell with Lincoln and he stayed in there growing, we were
Mm,
thought, miracle baby.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how was your pregnancy? Talk us through the pregnancy. I mean, once you
Um,
got past that 8 weeks, I say this in all the podcasts, like we have such trauma based around the time we normally have lost. So like those
yeah,
first 8 weeks would have been so scary for you. And then you got past
yeah,
8 weeks and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm at 12 weeks. Oh my gosh, and so
yeah.
yeah, how did that go?
So within the first 8 weeks, I actually had a bleed, and I thought, oh, here we go again. Like I'm miscarrying. And to mine and my husband's surprise, we went for a scan after the bleed, and they're like, no, here's the heartbeat. There's still a baby in there, and
Hmm.
my HCG levels kept doubling. So we were like, oh, okay. And they just said it was, I don't know, sometimes people just have a bleed, and yeah, so we were
Wow.
over the moon. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Yeah. So pretty much the pregnancy after that, like it was stressful because, each week went on, we were like, okay, like, this is
He's,
happening.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then it wasn't until I was about 27 weeks, I just started to feel really unwell.
Yeah.
Um, I can't even describe it. I just didn't feel right. Um, and, my mum said, you should go get checked out. And I'm like, oh, no, it's okay. It's just pregnancy. You sometimes feel unwell. Anyway, I ended up going, spoke to my obstetrician and he said, no, go in to the hospital to get checked. which I did, and it turned out I had preeclampsia, which
Okay.
is high blood pressure.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
don't
for
know a
those
lot. I
weeks,
don't know a lot about preeclampsia, but the girl I interviewed a couple of days ago also had the same. So at 27 weeks preeclampsia, high blood pressure, it is I believe
yeah,
it's a risk to you and baby.
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So then after that, I was admitted to the hospital, and I had a private obstetrician up until that point.
Yeah.
Um, but because then I was getting admitted, they sent me to the public hospital anyway, because that current hospital, because they were worried about, early delivery
Mm.
and things like that. So they ended up transferring me to the Royal Women's at Randwick
Yeah.
because they can cater for babies
Okay.
earlier if they come earlier.
Better than the private
Yes.
hospital. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, so then I went to the Royal Women's, and they were all lovely, and I was having scans and checks every day. And during that time, I had a lovely lady who was scanning me, and so it was probably 2 weeks in after I'd been at hospital, and she had said to the doctor in there, something doesn't quite look right with his heart. And prior to this, like, we had the NIPT test, like all the tests you
Mm-hmm.
could have, and
Mm-hmm.
everything was okay on all the scans previous, like nothing, all was okay.
Yeah.
Um, so then that was a bit of a curveball on top of, and it was COVID time, the end of COVID time. So like visitors weren't really allowed. And I don't know, I was super emotional, like just being
Of
away from home and my
course.
other son, like it was just, yeah, it was awful anyway.
How far did you live from the Royal Women's?
About half an hour.
Yeah.
So not too bad, like,
But still a
but
hefty drive. Yeah.
yeah. So then after that scan, they said we will have to get a cardiologist to come and scan you to, find out
Mm.
more information. And so I think it was a few days later. And prior to that, there was discussion about that it was really bad, like,
Mm-hmm.
that the left side of his heart was not formed properly. Um, and I remember I was in the room by myself, and I don't even know if I've told my husband this, but um, I asked her, like, what is this? Like, what is it going to
Mm.
be okay? And she said, if it is this, um, we would offer women a termination.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, like, by this stage I was, I don't know, 28 weeks or
Mm-hmm.
20. And I just, yeah, I was like, what do you mean a termination? Like, I don't, yeah, I was
Mm.
just,
Of course.
yeah,
You're like, my baby is almost here. Like
yeah,
that,
like,
we're over
yeah,
halfway. This, you can't terminate now. What do you mean?
yeah,
Yeah, of
yeah.
course.
So then we had to wait, I think it was a few days, and we finally had the scan with the cardiologist, and he was a lovely man. And we obviously went into that scan very anxious, and my husband was with me. And Lincoln was also, I had an anterior placenta.
Mm.
So every time they scanned, it was always a bit difficult to see.
Mm-hmm. Same with Milli. Yeah.
Yeah, which is, it's kind of
Stressful.
disappointing. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you just want to see everything's okay. So he had a look, and he said, yes, there is something not quite right with his heart. I don't think it's what they originally thought.
Okay, good.
Um, However, his tricuspid valve looks leaky.
Okay.
Now, this is all, yeah, it was
You're
all
learning all
these
of
big
this as you go.
words.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's like, basically, we will see what happens when he's born. many children have this, it's like 1 in 100 children are born with heart defects. People can live normal lives. There's medication.
Okay. Okay.
Depending on the extent, he may need surgery.
Yeah.
So then after that, we were like, okay, like,
Yeah.
it's not great, but
Termination
yep,
is off the cards. It's not even a
yep,
thing. He's going to be okay. Yeah.
yep, all's going to be okay. We'll get through it. He'll just need extra
Extra
help or,
care. Yeah.
extra
Yeah.
care. So yeah, that was kind of up to that
And
point. And
is this like, would this have been caused from the preeclampsia or not related at all?
no, they said not related at all.
Okay.
And probably jumping ahead, but since then we've had genetic testing, because then I was worried, like, could my other son have a problem? Like, but
Mm.
that all came back okay. Sometimes they said it just happens. Like, it's just like a birth defect. They don't form correctly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very big shock.
So you're 28 weeks. You found out Bubby has a heart defect. You've got preeclampsia.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
So then, also during one of those scans, they found, when I was at the Royal Women's, they found Lincoln was growth restricted.
Okay.
And that can also be related to the preeclampsia, but they don't know how much it was related to the preeclampsia or because of my delivery from my first son. Like, my uterus isn't quite right. So they
Okay.
said that could have affected it as well.
Yeah.
So then he was, 2 percentile. So they were also worried about that on top of his heart. And they kept saying every day, like, you'll be delivering, like, in days. Like, this is, that
Yeah.
we will be very surprised if you get very much further. So we had the NICU tour and all of that while I was admitted at hospital. Yeah, which is, super
Daunting.
confronting. Yeah. But I must say, like, we were super, hopeful. Like,
Of
I
course.
still never
Yeah.
thought, like, anything. I just thought, okay, like, all's going to be okay. He'll be
Yeah.
in the NICU for a while and then he'll be
We'll
okay,
be
sort of
bringing him
thing.
home. Yeah.
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 So then I sort of stabilized. They put me on lots of tablets for my preeclampsia, and he was, like, traveling okay, like, he was doing well. He wasn't in distress. So they said, you can go home on, like, a day release.
Oh my god! So
So
you had been
yeah,
staying in there, like you'd been staying there
yeah, I think it
every
was
single day.
about 4 weeks that I was in there every single day. And then they were
Wow.
like, wow, we can't believe you've gotten this far. He's, obviously he's okay for now.
Yeah.
So I was so stoked to be able to come home during the day and then go back. And
Yeah.
just because it's so hard, like, especially being away from my other son, he needs
Of
me as
course.
well. But
Yeah.
obviously you need to do what's
Do
safe
what's.
and
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then it was probably the day before I had Lincoln. I was at home and I'd been at home that night, and I started to get some pains in the morning, and just nothing too crazy, just like period pains. And
Yeah.
because I'd had my son 12 years ago, I was like, I
Is
don't know,
this
you forget.
it?
I was like, is
Yeah.
this it? Like, what's
Yeah.
happening? And then I went to the bathroom, and I think now it was my mucus plug had come away.
Yeah.
So I rang my husband. He was at work, and I'm like, I think we better go to the hospital. I rang them, and they're like, yes, like, come in. So I went in, and they had me on machines and checked, and they said I wasn't in labor, but yes, my mucus plug had gone. Um, you know, just we'll keep you in,
Yeah.
like,
Does
just to
that
make
mean
sure.
labor's imminent? Does that mean it's coming, or
I
how long?
asked that question, and they
Yeah.
said, like, sometimes women can lose their mucus plug weeks before
Yeah, that's
they.
what I thought.
So,
But I think you're at a
yeah,
higher risk of infection, maybe? Is that
that's
a
right.
thing? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So they admitted me back in the hospital, and they had sort of said, you're not in labor, like, we'll just keep you in. We're not having a baby today unless something, major changes. So I was like, my husband had to, like, he had been on and off work, and he had something to do at work. I was like, it's fine. You go to work. I'll ring you if, something changes. They said
Yeah.
he's not coming today.
And Lachlan would have been at school.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so then everything was fine. And then about, I don't know, early afternoon, I had intense labor pains that came on so quickly, and they had checked me like an hour before, and I wasn't like dilated or anything. And then when I had these major pains, then they came back in and checked me, and I was 2 or 3 centimeters. So it had, like,
Progressed.
progressed quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it seemed like it was so quick, but I'm sure it wasn't. But they just kept getting more intense, more intense. And then all of a sudden, I had a gush of my waters, and I think it's called meconium, where
Yeah.
he had pooed inside.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so then, like, all these doctors come rushing in, and they're trying to get his heartbeat, and they could find it, but he was in distress, like it was dipping really low. So then my midwife is like, it's just chaotic. My midwife is ringing my husband saying, you need to come, like, it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then basically within minutes, I was rushed down to theatre, and they put me to sleep because there wasn't time to, have
To
an
us.
epidural.
Yeah.
And I had a cesarean, and Lincoln was born.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of course, I was asleep, so I didn't know anything that was happening.
Yeah.
But I remember when I came to, but like, he's still so out of it. Like, um, they had said, like, he is on life support and he's very, very unwell. Um, when he was born, they said he came out not breathing, and they had to perform CPR for over
Oh.
20 minutes on him. But I still, when they told me this, I don't know, like, I still was like, okay, like, my mind
But
never
he's
went
back.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, like, my mind never
Yeah.
went, yeah, like,
Mm.
so, um, yeah, so we didn't get to, my husband obviously went down and saw him when I was still out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I couldn't see him until the next day, because by
Oh
this stage it was
no.
like, yeah, it was like, when I came at 2, it was like 11 o'clock at night,
Mm.
and obviously having a cesarean, I don't know, yeah, I couldn't
Oh,
see him till the next day.
that's so shitty.
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
so then the next day, and I was came around, my mum had come in, she'd showered me, and I was kept saying, like, can I go see him? Like, when, I want to
I
go
can't
see him.
believe they didn't let you see him sooner.
Yeah, I think the reasoning is because I couldn't get out of bed, and because he was in the NICU.
Yeah.
I don't, I guess that's why.
Yeah.
Um, and because he was super unwell, like, they couldn't
They
bring
couldn't
him
move
to
here.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
That's understandable.
and
Yeah.
yeah. so then I finally went down and I got to see him, and he was like, he opened his eyes, and like, it was obviously very confronting and scary. Um, but yeah, like I was so over the moon. Um, yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
he's
you're like,
here.
there's my boy. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was like, oh, we made it. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, and then, I remember they said like I could put my hand in and touch him through the, I'm not even sure what you call it, in the
Oh,
NICU,
so he
the
was in like
humidity.
a,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, he was in one of them, yeah.
yeah. Um, so that was so nice. And I remember the nurses in there saying, "Oh, you can take photos and things." And so I'd put my phone on top of the crib and just let it record for a little while. And I mean, there's such nice memories to have now. But I remember at the time
Absolutely.
thinking, "Oh, this feels like strange." Like,
Hmm. Taking
um,
photos and videos, do you mean?
yeah, like just in the NICU, like I don't know, it just,
Hmm.
and it sounds so silly. And now I wish, why did I think that? Like,
Do you think
um,
that do you think they were telling you that because they knew the outcome that was coming, or
I look back now and I think yes, probably.
hmm,
Um, but I never like got that. And
no?
I mean, I
And
was
the reason I
still,
asked that question is because we were the
yeah,
same. Like our nurses were phenomenal, the NICU nurses, and
yeah,
they were taking photos and videos of us. They would quite often just grab our phone and take photos and stuff with us.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and at the time I just thought it was beautiful, and because we
yeah,
always thought we're bringing Millie home, and when I
yeah,
look back now, I'm like, man, they knew and they were doing this, so
yes,
we had memories, which I'm so grateful for. And I mean,
same, like,
maybe they had hope too, and they thought we're going to bring her home, and they were just going to
yeah,
be memories for us to look at back at. But
yeah,
I don't think so. And so
yeah,
grateful for those memories.
S- same. And I wish we had more, like, of
Mm,
course,
yeah.
but yeah. So then that day, like, I stayed with him for a while, and then I sort of had to, like, I went back to the room and I had to sort myself out because I still, they had to make sure the preeclampsia and everything like that. And my husband had come in, and my son, um, just into the cafeteria because my son wasn't allowed into the hospital at the
Oh,
time. So
because of
he wasn't
COVID.
allowed. Yeah, like it was the back
Oh,
end of COVID and they still had all those rules, one visitor and all that stuff. And in the NICU, it was only allowed me and my husband. Um, children weren't allowed anyway. And I'm not sure if that's a rule
I do.
always or,
Yeah. So when we were in there with Millie, we had a friend
yep.
who had a baby, and we used to call him Millie's boyfriend. Like when
Ah,
Millie was neuter, we
that's
were
so
always
cute.
like, yeah, we were like, Mateo, Millie's coming soon. Like, we'd set them up for life. And
Yep.
he wasn't allowed in the hospital until the day she was passing, and then they let
Yeah.
him
That was,
into to NICU with us. Yeah, but prior
yeah.
to that, there was no other kids allowed in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I understand that. Like,
totally.
it's just sad, you know.
Oh, totally.
Um, so then anyway, we had a visit. I had a visit with them, and then my mum took my older son home, and me and my husband were at the hospital, and we went down and we were sitting with him for hours. And at that stage, the cardiologist came in and had said, "We've done scans on his heart. He obviously does have this defect, but it's hard to know exactly because his lungs are underdeveloped. Like we kind of need things to stabilize before we, have a plan of and to see how bad or."
Okay.
what
Yeah.
exactly is happening.
So the premature part was an issue before the heart could be looked at or helped
Yes,
more
yeah,
understand. Okay. Yeah.
yeah. And because he came out and he was not breathing, they were worried about that effect on him. And I remember they were doing brain scans and things
Mm,
like that. So really, it was just virtually a waiting game to see how he would respond. But I still feel like even in that lead up, like no one ever said to us, and which I'm kind of glad, I don't know, I'm confused about it. Like no one ever said like he's going to die. Like,
mm,
I mean, of course you're in this bliss of,
mm,
I don't know, I was still like everything's going to be fine.
yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
I never in my wildest dreams expected that would happen. Um, and then it was probably later that night, after me and my husband had spent some time in the NICU, they sort of had said, we're going to, I don't know, like they were going to give him medicine or they were doing something and they said, why don't you go have your medication, get yourself sorted, and then come back down at, I don't know, 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and we will give him like a sponge bath. We can
Mm,
bath him. So we
do
were
his
like,
cares.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we were like, oh, that's so good. Like
Yeah.
they'll take him, like take the humidity critter.
Mm,
So
oh,
you know, so we did that, and we were up in my room upstairs, and I remember, I don't know, this midwife, she couldn't get the BP machine, and I remember thinking, come on, like I was just so eager to get back down
I got
there.
places to be. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, come on, wrap it up.
Yeah.
Um, and then okay, we did that, and then we started to head back down to the NICU. And I remember when we got there, all these parents were walking out of the NICU, like lots of people. And I remember thinking, oh, that's odd. I was like, I hope they let us in. Like, I don't know what I thought was
Mm,
happening. And then I heard a mum say to the husband, oh my gosh, that's so awful. I hope he's okay.
fuck.
And I remember thinking, and I still didn't like think, I was like, oh
Mm,
no, something's wrong with a baby.
mm,
Anyway, so I was like, I said to my husband, let's just go, like, go in, like, see if they let us
mm.
in. So we went in, and as soon as we went through the doors, we were met with a nurse or a midwife, and she said, Lincoln's had a really bad turn. And I could just tell, um, like, I just screamed, like, and
Mm.
she's trying to console me. And she's like, do you want to come and be with him? And I was like, well, what do you mean he's had a bad turn? Like, are you giving him CPR? Like, what's, like, I didn't understand, like,
Mm,
what she meant.
mm,
So I remember her saying to her, well, she said, we're working on him. And I said, does that mean like you're giving him CPR? Because I didn't really want to see that. Like,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just remember thinking, I don't want to go in there if,
Oh, fuck.
I don't know. Like,
Yeah. What am I going to see? Yeah.
yeah, like, so they took us into a little room in the NICU and, like,
Mm,
were consoling us. And I remember me and my husband, and I had expressed my colostrum, and I had those little, um, they look like the little needles,
yeah. Like a little
in my
syringe
hand.
of, yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember thinking, I don't know, I just threw them in the bin, and I was like, I just knew without, I don't know, like, and I think, why did I do that? But I don't know. I was just, it was like I knew, like,
And it was
without
probably like this
anyone.
moment of anger of like, fuck, like, I'm
Yeah.
expressing this cluster, but I'm trying to do all the
Yeah.
right things. And yeah.
Yeah. Um, And I remember me and my husband we just said a prayer. We held hands and we said a prayer in this room. And then eventually we ended up going in and we were with him. And again, no one's like, I could tell, but no one said like, he's going to pass away. Um, and he just looked different. Like he wasn't opening his eyes. He looked very great. It was like he had already passed. Like he just wasn't himself. And I remember we just sat with him, and I remember they were like, is there anyone you want to come in and meet him? And I rang my mom, and I didn't even really tell her like what had happened. And I said, do you want to come in and meet Lincoln with my other son, Lachlan? So they came in and we just sat with him, and we were like, he was still obviously on the breathing machine. So we hadn't held him at this stage. So we were just all around loving on him, like touching him. And the midwives were taking photos. And I still, like I said to you, I felt like this doesn't, like, I don't know, it just felt icky. Like,
Yeah.
but I'm so, like, so glad they did that, because, like,
Yeah, you did.
there
It's
will
all.
never be
So
yeah,
what you've, I always feel the closest when I can go back and look at my photos of Millie. It's
yeah,
almost like it doesn't feel
yeah,
real, and then you look at the photos and you're like, oh, that was real.
yeah. So we just, I don't know. It didn't feel like very long, but I think it was hours. Like they stayed, and we just all were around him. Um, and then, like I sort of said to my mom, like, why don't you take Lachlan home, like now, like. So she did that, and then when my husband was walking them out, I remember I said to the midwife, what's happening, like
Yeah.
what is going on, what's going to happen. And she said, he's very unwell. And I said, is there something, like, can you give him medicine? Like, is he going to, and I think I knew deep down he wasn't going to be okay. And she said, we've given him all the medications we can. Um, Without saying it, she said, like, he's not going to get better. And I said, so what happens now? And she said, well, would you like to hold him, and we can, hold him for a little while, and then when you're ready, we can remove his breathing tube. So I knew in that moment, like, she didn't have to say, like, you know, um, and I remember my husband wasn't in the room when she said that to me. So when my husband walked back in, I said to the nurse, like, I didn't have the heart to tell him that. Like,
Yeah.
so I said, can you please tell my husband, like, what you just told me?
Uh,
So she did. And I don't know, like, you're in this haze. Like, I don't remember after that initial, like, I don't remember really crying. Like, it was like it wasn't real life.
yeah. You're
Like,
in shock. It's just shock.
yeah, like, and
And,
even
you're
then, like,
almost in autopilot, like just
yes,
like, even though it's not auto because you've never done it before, but it
yeah,
like it doesn't hit you for so long later.
yeah, like, and even then, like, I didn't in my mind think, okay, he's like going to part. Like, it's so surreal. Like, so surreal.
Yeah.
So then
How
we
did your
finally got
husband
to hold
react?
him.
How did your husband react when she said it to him?
Same. Like, it was like we were both just like, okay, like, I don't know, like
Mm-hmm. It's
it
going
wasn't
through
like a,
motions.
yeah, like it was, we were in shock. Um, but I think obviously we knew,
Mm.
but it was like no one wanted to say,
Yeah.
and we didn't want to say it either, because I guess if you say it out loud, then
Yeah.
it sounds silly, but then it's gonna happen. But I mean, it was
Mm.
going to happen anyway. Um, and then we finally got to hold him, which was like the best feeling in the
Mm-hmm.
world. And they said, like, who wants to hold him first? And I remember I was like, I'm holding him first.
Give him to me.
Yeah. So
Mm.
it was so lovely, and so sad at the same time. Like, we finally got to hold our baby. And he was so little. He was only 1.35 kilos. So he
Oh,
was like this
honey.
tiny little doll. Um, and we were just loving on him, telling him we loved him and his brother loved him,
Mm-hmm.
and um, telling him stories. Um,
Mm.
and then we switched, and my husband was holding him. And we have, yeah, I'm so glad for all the videos and photos. Like, I
Yeah.
wish we had more. I wish we had more. And I wish
Mm-hmm.
at that time I didn't think, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. Like,
Mm.
I don't know. But
Yeah.
now I'm so glad um, that they did that, and they were taking photos, and we had um, like a minister come in and bless Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, so we did that for a few hours, and then finally we had to, you know, say it was okay for them to take him off the machine. And I said to my husband, I want to be holding him when they
Mm-hmm.
do that. So then we switched, and I was holding him, and then they took out the tube, and then
Mm.
I don't even know how long, but it wasn't very long, and then he passed away when I was holding him. Um, it was such a lovely moment, but
Yeah.
just awful at the same time. Like, it just felt so unfair
Yeah.
and so surreal. Um, yeah, it was just so shit,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so nice at the same time.
One of my favorite photos um, is of Millie taking her final breaths on my chest, and
Oh,
it's like I love it so much, but it's like
yeah,
when you think of what that actually is, it's so awful. But like
yeah,
at the same time, I feel so blessed that we got to have that moment because
yeah,
a lot of people don't get to have that moment, when it
yeah,
happens suddenly or it happens in different circumstances or
yeah.
and the girl from Heartfelt had come out and taken professional photos for us. And again, I was the
Oh,
same. I was like,
nice.
this is so weird, but I just was
Yeah,
like, I'll say yes, and if worst case,
yeah,
I never look at them again, or we tell her to leave or
yeah.
whatever. But about partway right just after they took the tubes out, she picked up my phone and she just walked around the room, around the bed, and she took a
Oh,
video. And you can
yeah,
hear Millie, we were calling it snoring. It sounded like she was snoring, but she was like taking her last
yeah.
little breaths. And
Oh,
I was just thanking her for making me a mum and just telling her how much
yeah,
we loved her. And
yeah.
it's just like and I didn't find that video till only a few weeks ago when I was going through my phone and I was
Oh,
like, oh, what's this video? And I was like, oh, holy heck, like it's
yeah,
magical, like the most
yeah.
precious thing
It's
ever.
yeah. It is, and though even now, like, I still, when I have my days, like, it's something you can hold on to and watch back. And, you know,
Yeah.
they'll never be enough memories, but it's so special to have them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just awful.
Yeah.
It's just awful, and it's not fair.
No,
Um,
not at all.
yeah,
And so, how much time did you spend with him once they took the machines off? And did you spend much time with him once he had
yeah.
passed?
So then, you know, the midwives took all the, because he had a lot of tubes and tape and things, so they took all that off, and they said you can like stay with him as long as you want. There's like in the NICU a little room with like a bed and things like that. So they took us in that room, and we took Lincoln with us, and we got to give him his first bath. Um, and I couldn't do it. Like my husband bathed him. I was just still so sore from the cesarean, and I just couldn't physically stand up. Like I remember saying to him, "You do it," and like I watched, and it was lovely, and it was a nice thing for him, a nice memory for him, you know, like,
It's beautiful.
um, and then we stayed in that room with Lincoln that night. And one regret I do have is he was in like the baby, you know, the hospital bassinet,
Yeah.
and they had wrapped him up and dressed him all nice. And we sat that on the bed in between us. And I wish, like, I remember all that night, like, we didn't pick him up. Like, I don't know why we did. It's just, it was like, I don't know, but I really wish that we had and
Yeah.
just held him that night. I don't know. Yeah.
It's so traumatic, it's
Yeah.
like we my regret is that I didn't stay with her for longer, and we also couldn't bath her because like
Yeah.
once she had passed they took all the tubes out, and they said to bath her, and they set the bath up, and I couldn't do it. Like it just
Yeah.
felt so strange to bath my
Yeah.
baby that had passed away, and Dylan also couldn't do it, and so we laid her on the side of the sink in the hospital room, and I just kind of was splashing water a little bit, and I
Yeah.
kind of cleaned her up a little bit, but
Yeah.
and I don't regret it because that was the way it worked. But what I do regret
Yeah.
is that we left soon after because we just couldn't be there anymore. And then I've interviewed
Yeah.
other mums who were like, I did not leave that hospital without my baby, and they took their baby with them, and
Yeah.
and we got offered all those things, but it didn't feel right. So,
Yeah.
I'm with you with, the regrets or with the this and that, but it's just like in that moment, how do you know what to do? And
That's right.
it's so scary. Like, you're like, my baby,
Yeah.
and you don't want to hurt them, you don't want to, I
Yes.
don't know.
Yeah. No, I totally felt the same. And that night I remember um just wanting to leave. Like it
Yeah.
sounds so horrible saying it now, but I just wanted to leave. Like I just wanted to rush everything. I wanted to do what we had to do, and I wanted to get out of there,
Yeah.
and not like away from Lincoln, but just away. Like I don't
Alyson,
know,
we
like
literally said the midwives came in. Millie had been passed for maybe an hour, and we were like,
yeah,
okay, we're going. And they went,
yeah,
are you going to stay the night? And we literally said, get us the fuck out of here.
yeah,
And,
yeah. I
like, because
felt
it
the
was
exact
like,
same
and they
way.
didn't even make me do discharge papers. They were amazing. They handed me all my drugs, and they said, go. They said,
Yeah,
we'll do the paperwork later. And they did. They just let us leave. And again, it is
yeah,
a guilt that I'm like, oh, I just left
yeah,
my baby there. But I just got home, and I was just shaking, and I just had to get into
yeah,
bed, and I just was like, hold me. We'd been in there for
yeah,
six days. I went into surgery on a Friday to have my baby, thinking I was just going to spend 5 beautiful days at PANDA in the deluxe suite, breastfeed my
yeah,
baby, have all this time, and then come home. And the next minute I spend
yeah,
6 full days in, and it's it's
yeah,
so valid that you just wanted to get out of there. It's
yeah,
awful.
yeah. And I do regret it now because I felt like I just wanted to rush everything. Like I just wanted to And yeah, it's just messed up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you spent the night with him and then the next morning.
Yeah. Well, he passed at like 20 past 2 in the morning. So by the time we bathed him and, you know, did all those things, it was like early hours of the morning anyway. And we didn't sleep. Like we
Of
just
course.
sat there and I remember when a midwife came in to check on us, I remember saying, "Can we leave? Like when in the morning I want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Like will they discharge me?" Because I was worried because I'd had a cesarean that they were going
Mm.
to be like, you know, not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh, talk about it with the midwife in the morning. Like, we'll just." And I remember saying to my husband, "I'm leaving." And I made
Mm-hmm.
him go put my bags in the car. And I said, "I don't care, we're leaving."
Mm.
And then, you know, the morning came around and we wanted to go up to my hospital room and sort out what we had to sort out so we could leave. And then, so the midwife came and they said, "Do you want to come with us to the morgue
Oh,
to take
fuck.
Lincoln?" And I was like, "No." Like,
Mm.
I don't know. It sounds so horrible, but I didn't want to.
Of
So
course.
she took Lincoln away, and that was really hard, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, and then we went up to my room and saw all the doctors came and everyone came, and I just told them I want to leave, and they were super, you know, great. Like obviously they didn't want me to
Mm.
leave, but
Mm.
they sorted me out, and I remember it felt like hours and hours, like just of this medication and all the things we
Mm.
had to do. And we ended up leaving at about 10 o'clock the next morning. And even just driving away from the hospital, like, I'm like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was so, we didn't want to leave him, but we also wanted to leave. Like,
Mm. And did you have
because
the
oh,
car seat in the back of the car or anything like that? And
no, we hadn't because we had bought it, but because I got admitted early, like we hadn't got to
mm.
that,
Mm.
which in a way was good. I don't know. It's not
Mm.
good. Nothing's
Mm.
good, but
Mm. I
yeah,
remember years ago hearing a story that the worst thing ever was somebody losing their baby and getting in the car and driving home with an empty car seat. So I remember
yeah,
on that final day with Millie, people coming up and offering, what do you need us to do? And I just, something dawned on me and I was like, somebody needs to go get that car seat
yeah,
out of, like the capsule out of the car. And it was awful because like, it's such a big moment. You buy it and you get it put in, and I'd bought a new car,
yeah,
like, and my sister drove us home from the hospital and I was in the front and my husband was in the back. And he even admitted later, even though the car seat wasn't in there, it was still awful. Like,
yeah,
like he was still
yeah,
sitting in the
yeah,
back thinking I should be sitting in the back with her. And
yeah.
then you come
It's
home to an
just,
empty house and even if you don't have all the things for a baby, you still have some
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah. It's just, yeah. It's just unimaginable. Like, it's so fucked.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Mm-hmm.
so. And I remember too, like at this stage, like my son was with my mum at home, and like they didn't, like we hadn't spoken to them since they left the hospital, so they didn't know anything. Um, so I remember I had this pulling feeling of like being with Lincoln, but also being with Lachlan because I knew Lachlan was
Mm.
going to be like, we had to tell him, like I didn't want to tell him over the phone. Um, so yeah, I remember when we were driving home, my Lachlan had tried to ring my phone and I didn't answer.
Mm.
And I just texted and I said, "We'll be home in 30 minutes." So I'm sure that they thought, like,
You,
yeah, like, why are they
mm.
coming home? Like,
Mm.
and I just remember walking through the door and I just cried and cried. And they knew, and I had to say to Lachlan that Lincoln's in heaven with Poppy, and he just sobbed, and
Oh,
it was just awful. It was just so sad.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and it was just hell the next few days, like. And then,
Did you have good support around you? What was like? What were the best things that people did or didn't do for you in that
yeah,
time?
like, number one, like my husband, he is amazing, and this Lincoln has brought us, even closer together. I know some people say that like it can tear a relationship apart,
Yeah.
but he has been like, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have him. He's been so amazing.
Yeah.
And my mum, she's probably she's probably copped the most, like, from just my grief. Like, sometimes you're just so horrible to some, just not, you just snap, and I take things out on her, but she's been like amazing. Like, I couldn't have got through it without her either. Just being there and helping us, and
It's so good.
everyone's been wonderful. Of course, there's some people that, I don't know, they stay away instead of,
Yeah.
which is hard. But
Yeah.
people just sometimes don't know what to say, but it is a bit hurtful.
Yeah.
Um, and the Bears of Hope, we got a bear when we left. Yeah,
I love my bear.
they have been incredible, especially Kelly. I see Kelly at Miranda
Okay.
for counselling, and
Is that part of Bears of Hope?
yeah, so
Okay.
it's free counselling. And she's also a bereaved mother.
Okay.
Um, it's just nice talking to someone that's been through the same thing, and they validate that you're not going crazy. Like,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
just good to, yeah, like, just, I'm always so anxious when I go and see her, but afterwards, it's just,
Mm. Oh,
you
it's
know,
having any
a
like
release.
kind of like counseling or psychology is invaluable. I started
Yeah,
seeing a psychologist literally. We got out of the hospital, and 2 days later, I was there, and I've seen her every
yeah,
week or fortnight
yeah,
since.
yeah.
And I don't know where I would be without that. Like you, and I'm the same. I
Yeah.
feel some days I go in there and I'm really upbeat, and then I'm crying by the end, or I go in crying and I'm upbeat.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just such a roller
Yeah.
coaster. And it's funny
Yeah.
you say that your counselor is a bereaved mum, because when I first went to my psychologist, she's young, she doesn't have kids, and my first thought was, you're not going to understand my pain, but
Yeah.
she's a phenomenal psychologist and she's
Yeah.
extremely intelligent, and so she has been amazing from that aspect, and just like never judgmental, and always,
Mm-hmm.
oh, she's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always, and I see a pattern of people that I'm interviewing, of people that haven't had any support in terms of counselling or psychology compared to the ones that have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the trauma and the grief is going to hit us no matter when we open up and deal with it. So it's like the sooner the better, really.
That's so true.
And
Very true.
the doctor told me that when I first started, like, because we were just like straight away wanting to get back into it, and like, I'm not allowed
Mm-hmm.
to be pregnant for 12 months, but I wanted to start IVF, and she was like, please, please, just give it some time. Like, you've got to
Yeah.
heal first. And I, in my head, I'm like, I'm never going to heal from this, and just what's the point? And let's just go. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I think time never heals, but it's certainly each day you learn something new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It, yeah. I don't think life would never be the same and okay, and something will always be missing. Like, um, I guess you just learn to live with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you have
Uh,
to find reason. This is going to sound really morbid, but I think you have to find reasons to keep living. You know,
yes,
you obviously have Lachlan, which it would be such a driving force for you. I,
definitely.
you know, I have moments where, you know, I was only messaging my sister yesterday saying like, I only stay here for you and the girls. Like, it's just like
Yeah.
so hard because, and
Yep.
it's not that I don't love Dylan and I'm not staying here for him, but it's like
Yep.
you know, sometimes you think he would be better off without me, and I, you know, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
all the shit. But it's like
Yeah.
I would never. Yeah, you just every day you need to find something to live for, and it's
Yeah.
so hard
Yeah.
when your baby's in heaven. It's like,
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean and how you feel with that because, um, and the same is like my husband, like I love my husband, but if it wasn't for Lachlan, like, yeah,
yeah,
not that I would, yeah, not that I would ever think, but I just remember
yeah,
thinking, thank God I have Lachlan because
yeah,
otherwise I wouldn't get up every day like this. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with saying that, you know, people do say, well, at least you've got one child. That doesn't make it better, and that doesn't make it
No.
okay to lose a child. It definitely
Yeah.
gives you reason to live, and it gives you, you know, like you said, that reason to get up every day. But it doesn't make baby loss any easier because it just adds
No.
another element of grief, and it adds another element of you having to explain to your child that their little baby brother passed away. And
Yeah.
our friends we had dinner with last night, they have a beautiful little boy, Judah. I interviewed her on episode 4, and they lost a little boy, Benji, 2 years ago. And, you know, quite often Judah misses his little brother, you know. So it's like it doesn't make it better or easier when you
Yeah.
already have kids, or, you know, when you get to
Yeah.
have your earth babies later. Like, what, you know, it doesn't. But it gives you a reason to get up every day. I know that. Or,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I imagine it does.
No, yeah. It's yeah. It's still yeah. It's
It's just
just
shit.
messed up.
It's just
Yeah.
shit. It's just shit.
There's no other way. It's just so shit. Like and it's just not fair and yeah.
And you said that when you're in the hospital, like your husband and yourself said a prayer.
Yeah.
Are you guys Christian or Catholic? And because I know you had a, and how, and
Yes.
if you are, how has your journey been since then? Because I know we are Christians and we were praying a lot
Yeah.
in hospital, and I've struggled a lot with my faith since.
Yeah. So I'm Catholic. My husband's Christian. Um we're not super religious people like my husband's family are. Um but you know, we went to church sometimes and things like that. Um, I found it peaceful, like that. I'm happy that that lady had came and you know said a prayer. But I remember probably 6 months later there was like a remembrance mass at the church, and I went and I remember sitting in the church and just feeling so angry. Like I just did not want to be there. I was angry at God.
Yeah.
And I still feel like that sometimes. Like, I just feel like, why did you do, like, what have I
Mm.
done? Why did you do this? Like,
Mm.
it can't, there is no God if,
Mm.
like, he took my baby. Like, I don't know, all
Yeah.
these. But then when I say that and think that, I think, don't say that, don't think that, because I want to be in heaven with Lincoln
Mm-hmm.
one day. Like, it's just
Mm.
a
A head
back
fuck.
and forward. Yeah, pretty much. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I've been the
Um,
same. So, you know, I was saved, became a Christian like maybe 2016, 2017 when I was in a really dark place.
mhm.
And, you know, it was a saving grace for me, and it's been a really incredible journey, and still not an easy life, but an incredible journey with God and church and loving all of that.
Mhm.
And then my husband was saved when we broke up for 6 months in 2020, and he was saved, and we got back together, and we started going to
Mhm.
church. Not again, not super religious, but spiritual. Like I love the
Yeah.
spirituality side of, and I love the community.
Yeah.
Definitely don't follow all of the religious rules. Obviously, we were pregnant at my wedding, so but and I swear a lot, but I love the
That's the
values.
same as us.
Yeah, I value
I was
the.
pregnant with Lachlan when we got married too.
Were
So
you? There you
yeah, yeah,
go.
yeah.
Yeah, we did a gender reveal, and well, we had been similarly to you. We'd been trying to fall pregnant for quite some time. We'd had a miscarriage.
Mhm.
We'd had a couple of chemical pregnancies. I
Mhm.
really wanted to have the same surname as my baby, so I was like, I really want
Yeah.
to be married. I want to, let's be a family, and then we booked the wedding date in. We bought the wedding dress, and then we fell pregnant. So I
Oh,
know, and
it
so
was meant to
it
be.
was, and we did a gender reveal at the wedding, and we surprised all our guests. They didn't know, and so it was so
Oh,
magical. And I love that she was there with us that day, and we were 22 weeks pregnant. So when you're 22 weeks, they say, well,
oh,
20, 22, 23, and they say that that's when baby can start to hear noise, like hear things. So I always said like she can hear our
yeah,
vows, and she hears the love that we have for each other, and so that
yeah.
was so special. But
Such a nice memory. Yeah.
yeah, so but yeah, and so when we were in the hospital, like we were listening to worship music when I went in for my cesarean. That was my
Mhm.
playlist was worship music, and we like all through the week we just kept playing worship music over her crib, and we had people from church coming up and praying for us, and we weren't heavily involved in the church. We've only lived on the Gold Coast for a year and a half,
Mhm.
but we were enough that they came for us. They were so there
Yeah.
for us, and they were bringing gifts and anointing oil and communion, and just
Yeah.
incredible. And I literally had a realization yesterday. And then in that time after Millie passed, I did a huge post on social media. Like, I know all my friends were praying for us, and I know a lot of you aren't Christians, so you're probably wondering how we feel now that we didn't get the miracle we were praying for.
Mhm.
But we got this, and this, and it was, we got the time with her. She didn't die so suddenly that we didn't get a beautiful day with her. We got loads of tests and stuff done so we can use that to help future siblings. Like, so we
Yeah.
saw all the blessings. But then when reality hit me months later, I was like, oh, I'm so cranky about this. Like, no. And
Yeah.
I went to church, and I went to a conference, and they were praising Jesus and praise for the miracles and praise for the healing. And I was like, where's Millie's healing? Where's Millie's miracle? But then I go back, and there's that head fuck again. It's like she was our miracle, and she's healed in
Yeah.
heaven, and all the things. And then yesterday I had a realization. Dylan and I have been, our marriage is, really being challenged in the last week with all the things, and I just was like, God help us. And for
Yeah.
that moment, I realized like he is there, and we do need him, and he is the first person I need to go to be like, please help, like,
Yeah.
And I did feel that little bit of relief of like, I've got you. Like, I know
Yeah.
this is shit, and I never promised life would be easy, but I promise I'll always be with you. And this is the first time I've actually gone deep into any kind of this on
Oh,
on a
that's
on a
so. Yeah.
on a
No.
podcast. But it was like, I want to be there because I want to be in
Yeah.
this space of not being angry at God, and I want to be in this space of having that belief still, because I do believe in
Yeah.
heaven. Because if we don't
Yeah.
believe in heaven, then we're our babies. Like, I have to believe in
That's
that,
right.
and I want to believe that they're up there with God and Jesus and in a beautiful garden.
Yeah.
And I say to every mum or dad that I meet that when we become friends on earth, like you and I now are friends, I believe that our
Yeah.
babies are dancing in heaven. So I truly
Yeah.
believe that Millie,
Yeah.
Millie and Lincoln are up there dancing together, and I
Yeah.
do truly believe that. And so I said to Dylan this morning, or last night, I said, the best our marriage has ever been was when we were in that hospital, and we
Yeah.
had God at the forefront of that whole thing. We were like, God, help us right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, we have to get back into that space of just praying
Yeah.
for peace, or praying for
Yeah.
comfort, or praying for something that, because right now our marriage, like, everything is not good. And
Yeah.
so let's just, and so we're going to go back to church this Sunday, and we're not going to go every week. That's just it.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah. I,
Yeah. No.
but I even,
Like.
you don't have to be in church to be in church, it's being around
That's right.
people and
Yeah.
having dinner with our friends last night who are faith-based, and they're 2 years ahead of us in their grief journey of losing Benji, and it's so nice. They're like, all the fights you guys are having are valid, and all of the things are normal,
Yeah.
and all of your feelings are normal. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it was just when you said earlier that you prayed and the puppy got baptized, I was like, oh, I was
Yeah.
curious of where you're at in your journey, because it's a hard one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, like you said, a pull. Like, yeah, and it depends what day, how you feel, and it's yeah. But I do believe that one day, when we're meant to be, we will meet them again in heaven,
Oh,
and that
absolutely.
brings me comfort. Um, so
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I say, I get a lot of things sent to me from friends that says, like, how beautiful that voice will be when you hear "Hi, Mummy" for the first time in heaven. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, my
yeah,
word.
yeah.
Um, and so did you have a funeral for Lincoln? You guys came home afterwards and spent a couple of awful days at home. And then obviously the
Yeah,
process starts of, are you going to do an autopsy? Are you going to do this? Are you going to have a
yeah,
funeral? How did you guys
yeah.
navigate that time?
Um, we decided not to do an autopsy, because we felt like we knew. Um, and personally, I don't know, I just didn't want to put him
Yep.
through that.
Yep.
So we decided not to, but they did a few other like biopsy tests and things, which we said that they could do. And then just trying to, yeah, plan the funeral. We ended up having, and it's something that I kind of and ah with now, like we had a private, so we just had a select few of people come, like
Yep.
that we invited. Um, and I just felt at the time like he's mine. Like,
Mm,
I don't
yeah.
know, I didn't want to share him with everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know. And now I think, oh, it would have been so nice if everyone, but that's how I was feeling at the
Yeah.
time. Um,
Yeah.
so we had a lovely little, well, not lovely, you
Mm,
know what I mean? It was lovely,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
Um, a funeral, and we actually decided we buried him with my dad. So that gives
Oh,
me comfort that they're together,
that's
and my dad is
beautiful.
looking after him until we can
Mm,
again.
yeah, that's so
Yeah,
beautiful. And so, like,
yeah,
I'm a details person. Like,
yeah. That's
literally put the casket in on top of his or with his, or
yeah,
oh
with my dad. So
wow,
they're in the same plot together.
plot. Oh, I love
Um,
that.
I don't know. It just makes me feel like he's not alone there.
That's
And they're
beautiful.
together, and someone's looking after him.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh dear.
Yeah. You miss your dad too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm glad they're together.
Yeah.
Um,
How long ago did you lose
but
your dad?
it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, just and we ended up naming Lincoln's middle name is my dad's name as well. So that's,
Oh, so special.
nice. Yeah, special.
Yeah.
Um,
We always say that we can sit. So our favorite place in the world when we were little was on our Poppy's knee, like my pop.
yeah,
And
yep.
so we always say that Millie's up there on Poppy's knee, which is just like the best place
Oh,
ever. And crazily enough, the hospital that we were in, the Brisbane Mater Hospital, is on Stanley Street. And my pop's name was
oh,
Stanley. So we were like,
oh,
right? Like,
yeah,
Poppy Stanley is like the name of our family. Everyone loves Poppy Stanley. And for her
yeah,
to pass away on Stanley Street, it was just like, wow. And so she's
yeah.
she's for
Crazy.
sure in heaven on Poppy's knee.
Oh,
I love it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice to think. Like, yeah.
You just have to cling on to
Oh,
those things, hey?
that's so true. So
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're okay. It's so good. I love a good cry. It's like my favorite
Yeah.
thing. You know, it's so nice to connect with other families and other mums and just to talk about it and not feel so alone. And that's what I said to you at the beginning of the call. Like, I never feel alone because there's just
Yeah.
so many of us who have experienced this, whether more recently or whether a long time ago. And what I'm noticing is it can be equally as raw once we start
Mm-hmm.
talking about it, no matter how long the time. So, you know, I think so. It's been 18 months since you lost Lincoln.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's life look like now?
It's very different. I feel like I'm a completely different person. Um, just things that would bother me before don't bother me now, or people that don't bring anything in my life. Like, I don't feel that need to
Give it time
be
or
nice and
energy.
yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, like I just don't care anymore. Like, um, yeah, uh, Lincoln, we talk about him every day. Um, you know, he'll never be forgotten because we'll make
Mm,
sure of that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I just,
And you made a little garden for him.
yeah, we have a little garden in our backyard, and someone bought us. There's a Master Lincoln rose.
Cute.
Um, yeah, so we planted some of them, and there's a little light with Lincoln's name. So
That's
that's a
beautiful.
nice thing to do as a family, to look after the garden, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so
So
nice.
yeah.
I was going to say
Um,
something else. Oh, how did you go going back to work? Do you work and yeah.
yeah. So I don't know why, but I felt the need to go back because I had been off for so long already.
Oh, of course,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so, and I remember someone asked me like a month after I'd lost Lincoln, oh, have you gone back to work yet? And I remember being so angry, thinking, why are you asking me this? Like, if Lincoln was here, you would not be asking me
Right.
this. Like, um, and anyway, I went back probably 2 months or so after, and yeah, it was super hard. Yeah, I'm just not the same person, and I just couldn't concentrate.
Yeah.
And I ended up actually leaving my job probably 6 weeks ago now. Like, I
Okay.
was
Yeah.
there, and then I just was like, I just need some time. So
Yeah.
yeah, I resigned, and yeah, I'm just having some time at the moment.
How good. But it
Um,
feels great.
yeah, yeah, it does. And I felt it was right to go back to work at the time, and I'm glad I did. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just
I think
need
going
some
back
time
to a
now.
place where everyone knows you and a place where you were pregnant, I think that's
Yeah,
challenging.
yeah,
I'm due to go my mat leave, so I was on maternity leave for four
yeah,
months, and I had the same thing. People are like, "Oh, so you're working yet?" And I'm like, "No, I'm on maternity leave. Like, I don't have my
yeah,
baby, but I'm, And so the
yeah,
government did pay me my mat leave, which I'm so grateful for.
yeah,
I'm a sole trader and have a little beauty salon in my backyard, but
yeah,
I'm not going back to the salon in my backyard because I literally can't go in there. I'm like, I was
yeah,
pregnant in there. All my clients knew me. I worked up until 38 weeks. They all bought me presents, and I literally imagined introducing my baby to every one of my clients in that salon.
yeah,
I can't. Well,
yeah,
someone said the other day, change the wording, it helps. And I was like, okay, well, I'm choosing not to go back into the salon because
yeah,
that feels really traumatic for me, and I don't want to put myself through that. So
yeah,
we've just moved my salon from the cottage in the backyard to a room in the house, which is still
Okay.
separate access, beautiful
Yep.
ensuite. So it's like still a beautiful salon experience, but I'm so nervous. Like, I'm going to
Yeah.
have my clients are beautiful, but they all know.
Yep.
And even if they didn't, I'd want to tell them anyway. So it's like this challenge of like wanting to talk about it so much, but then knowing what it's going to bring up. And so every client that comes in, I'm going to be showing. I've made like a little space on the wall with all photos of Milli, so that when they come
Oh,
in,
that's
it's
so
like,
lovely.
here she is. Like, let me tell
Yeah.
and just
Yep.
opening up. So there's no awkwardness from them of is she going to talk about it? Is she not? But
Yes.
I can only imagine going back into, if you work in the corporate world or, hospitality, and going back to working with so many people that would all have different opinions, and they'd be making
Mhm.
comments or they wouldn't be making comments, and you just want to scream like, my baby died. You want to talk
Yeah.
about it, but it's just so hard. I just
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
navigating.
And all you can do is what you feel is right at the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And then like you've
yeah.
done what is right in 18 months time, it's just
Yeah.
that riding that
Yeah.
wave of what's next. What
Yes.
do I need
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah. That's very true. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it has been so lovely chatting to you. I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to add.
I think that's all. I just wanted to say thank you so much for doing this podcast. It's wonderful what you're doing, and I'm so sorry about Millie.
Thank you. Thank you. I really, really love doing the potty. I just like,
Yeah.
people think it's crazy I'd start something so soon after, but I say to people it feels like something just dropped from heaven and into my heart and was like, I need to do this because I needed to talk about it. And
Yeah.
then I realized when people loved hearing my story, it's like, well, hey, maybe I can share other people's stories. And I think only someone that's been through what we've been through can be the person interviewing people, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to have
Definitely.
experienced it. So, it's my absolute pleasure. And I feel really honored to have had you on. And thank you for sharing
Oh,
Lincoln
thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And yeah, this podcast will be up in a couple of weeks and you'll be sure to know about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And here for you if you need anything. Whatever.
And you too.
Yeah. Thanks, Alyson.
Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.